American Express is moving their chips in and making a big play. They're lining up their cards to build a super app to obliterate the competition. We'll talk about all the pieces in play, how they're throwing a wrench in Chase's plans, but also why they need to be careful not to alienate some customers. They also did file some interesting trademarks that we'll get into. Big favor before we dive in is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know anyone else that might benefit, then share this with them. As a background, a lot of this goes back to what the American Express Platinum card was just 7 years ago. Back then, a lot less people had the card. One key benefit was the Concierge line, where they could help with restaurant reservations. Especially useful to get last-minute reservations at more upscale places. It did have to be within the partner network, so ones that they had relationships with, otherwise you were out of luck. You could also email them and they would help with travel tips and advice, whether you're visiting Koh Samui, Taipei, Singapore, or Lake Louise. Not necessarily the most personalized emails, but still nice to have it. The guides were also pretty comprehensive, a lot of them 40 to 50 pages long. But to be fair, pretty much enhanced digital versions of paper ones. Emailing to get reservations for restaurants was pretty solid though. In particular abroad where it might be a bit more annoying, and you can just email them and they book on your behalf. So for example, here's a reservation for Hong Kong back in 2018. Here's another one for Sterling Brunch in Vegas, also from 2018. Remember that a lot of this was before ChatGPT, so this was being typed by hand. Added bonus that we did not expect at all was free Taylor Swift tickets. No clue what happened here or if they just had extras, but happy to get 4 free tickets, and yeah, Mandy had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. Well worth a weekend trip down to LA. They didn't have as many platinum card holders, so they tried to go above and beyond. A lot of this changed with one of the acquisitions they made. The idea, rightfully so, is that you can automate a lot of this. In mid-2019, they bought Resy, which was a CRM and reservation platform for restaurants. The goal being to expand digital dining access and experiences. I definitely remember that the Concierge was getting slammed back then, so it made sense to help them scale. Also made a lot of sense since restaurants, even high-end ones, moved towards digital platforms themselves. People nowadays are used to booking online. A few days ago, they made another big purchase. This one being potentially problematic for their main competitor, Chase. Amex acquires Tock, which is another reservation platform, for $400 million. The reason this matters is because Chase partnered with Tock in order to compete with Amex. It's kind of like if Kevin Durant left OKC to join the Warriors, or Johnny Damon left the Red Sox to join the Yankees. Not one-to-one, but a pretty ballsy move. One question that I've seen a lot is why buy Tock and not something else? OpenTable being a name that comes up a lot. Main reason being that OpenTable was already bought back in 2014 by Priceline for $2.6 billion. Beyond that, they did have to write it down for almost half the amount, so $941 million as an impairment charge. Personally, I think OpenTable is fine, but I haven't used it in ages. I feel like a lot of the restaurants that we normally go to have moved to Yelp reservations, and the top-end ones have moved to Tock. For example, if you're celebrating something, I think Lazy Bear is one of the best meals I've ever had, but it's also on Tock. I think they previously had their own platform back in 2019, but they moved to Tock. Also, we have gone twice, firstly when it was a 1-star, and then afterwards when it became 2 stars. Another one we recently did was San Juan, which is Korean food, 1 Michelin star, pretty solid. If anything, the high-end restaurants that you would associate with American Express are on Tock. Some of them only on Tock. So for example, for San Juan, you can walk in, but that's only for the counter. Even if you go to their site to make a reservation, it leads back to Tock. For American Express, this ends up being a discovered check of sorts on Chase, and maybe even a pin at the same time. They're adding a platform that makes sense for them, and they're putting Chase in a weird spot. This brings us to potential changes to one of their key cards. The gold card being top of mind given timeline and other changes. Reminder that they were looking to refresh 40 cards across their whole portfolio at the beginning of the year. Pretty much all the Hiltons and Delta cards have had a refresh. All speculation at this point, but the idea is that they're increasing the annual fee and either adding new credits or increasing the value of current ones. Before, my guess was that they were adding up to 120 Resy credit for $10 per month. It would be annoying, but it would put it in line with the Amex Delta Platinum, which is also $10, and the Amex Delta Reserve, which is $20 per month. Given the Tock acquisition and early pushback on the Resy credit, I think it might make sense to reevaluate. 2 options that are top of mind are keeping the up to $120 for Uber, so $10 per month, and making it up to $240 for dining, and that would work for partners, Resy, and Tock, and it'd be $20 per month. If you like Cheesecake Factory and Shake Shack, then that still works, but now you have the option of Resy and Tock. Option number 2 is getting rid of the Uber one and having up to $360 in dining credits that work for partners, Resy, and Tock. So pretty much $30 per month. The Uber credit is annoying for some people, and end of the day, the gold card is a dining card, so it makes sense. $30 pretty much covers a full meal in pretty much any city. With that said, there is a pretty big potential risk. The issue is that they might be alienating high-value customers that would otherwise spend a lot, but who don't eat out. So people that might be high income, high net worth, who travel, but who just don't like eating out. Looking at the comments on Reddit and other places, that seems like a pretty big problem. So for American Express, they might need to figure out how to convince these people to maybe go for some of the other cards, like the Blue Cash Everyday, which is pretty good for groceries. It is cash back, but otherwise solid, and also the Blue Cash Preferred, which is also equally good, but higher annual fee, but could still make sense. The Gold card is in a bit of a weird spot, so I think they do need to tread carefully. Also seeing a lot of comments about people who want to cancel the card, but not because they don't like the current iteration, but in fear of future changes. To me, that doesn't make sense. If your annual fee is coming up or if it just happens, you'd want to lock in for the next 12 months at that $250 annual fee. You're getting the upside of the new card at the cost of the old card. Obviously depends on what credits they add, but I can't imagine them just outright getting rid of stuff right away. So even if they do move fully towards a dining card, I think the Uber credit probably wouldn't expire for 6 to 12 months. Also, all of this is before considering other people who will cancel their card. In that case, it's easier for you to get a retention offer. 2024 numbers are not too crazy, but if they do get a load of cancellations, then you never know. Main takeaway, if you have the Gold card, if you're getting value from the current iteration, even if you are scared of changes, you probably want to lock in for a year. Best case, you get a ton of value for the same annual fee. Worst case, you have retention offers that are probably going to get interesting. If you are interested in the Gold card, I'd recommend checking Card Match to see if you have elevated offers. It's one of the ways that people are pulling $90K for the Gold and $150K for the Platinum. We do have a blog post walking through this that should pop up if you Google Card Match AskSebby, and I'll also link it down below. On that note, if you want to learn about cards, whether American Express or some other issuer out there, and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. As always, make sure the offers are competitive, that the cards make sense for you, but otherwise it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you guys in advance. One interesting question about the complaints is whether they're representative. Is it something that everyone hates, or is it a vocal minority? All the changes that Amex made that people think are destroying the company is working pretty well acquiring millennials and Gen Z. A lot of people are signing up and happy with the fees and the credits. Spending is also way up for Gen Z and millennials, especially for things like events, travel, and food. Things that you associate with Amex. Also a bit surprising to me, but these two groups are overtaking some other ones for US credit card spend. They're signing people up and they're happy to spend on the cards. On the corporate end, profits are up and a record number of people are flocking to these cards. Even if you're not a fan of dining out, it is in line with their branding. Even back in the 80s and 90s, American Express is associated with high spenders.
Only $5.70. Not bad.
$5.70 over 4 people is about $143. $143 adjusted for inflation is about $400, which is pretty expensive to me. Them going back to dining and leaning into it isn't that much of a departure. With this growth, they did have to deal with Centurion Lounge overcrowding. I think a lot of people, especially families, were rightfully not happy with the change, but it did seem to work. Your mileage may vary, but most visits I've had haven't had a line. This is mostly out of SFO, and then Vegas and JFK. And to be fair, Vegas can be crowded on Sunday night, but if you're not traveling on Friday and Sunday, it's not too unreasonable. Some people aren't happy though, and I think they might be expecting a bit too much from the card. Call me crazy, but even if you bought a lounge membership from American or United, it's fine, but the experience isn't that much better. If anything, I think the Centurion Lounge has better food. So pretty much $700 with no credits and nothing really helping you, or the coupon book. And of course, if you're flying first in business, that's different. But for domestic flyers who are looking for a coffee, snack, or a meal for their monthly or quarterly flight, it feels like an easy win. If you only travel a few times a year during holidays when everyone else is flying, then maybe tread carefully. Another acquisition they made was Lounge Buddy. This was also acquired back in 2019, but as of early this year, a lot of people thought we were saying goodbye. Main reason being that the apps, so the iOS and Android apps, are getting shut down. Web seems to be fine though for now. My guess is that they're consolidating this and rolling it up into a super app. Imagine a super app that would allow you to book travel, make dining reservations, and also plan trips. This is exactly what Amex is building. In Asia, they are pretty standard and you have apps like WeChat and Alipay that are pretty much Facebook, meets Twitter, meets Uber, meets Venmo, meets Grubhub. In the US, a lot of money has been thrown at this, but it hasn't succeeded. I don't think we'll get to that level, but we might see a mini version. Gary over at View from the Wing actually reported this back in January. Initially, I was a bit skeptical, but the pieces are falling into place. It's a new venture bringing together a lot of the pieces that they have. It's going to be a mobile app that offers travel planning, booking, and servicing. Pretty much every step of the journey, like lounge access, booking restaurant reservations, and also experiences. The reason he found this was due to a job listing. They're hiring a senior manager to design, develop, and deliver this, and it's going to be the first ever travel and lifestyle booking and servicing app. It's going to be a true companion in all phases of the customer travel lifecycle, whether that's trip inspiration and planning, post-booking services, or on-trip engagements. If you think about it, there's pretty much 5 pieces being lined up. The first one is Resy and Tock for dining. Number 2 is Lounge Buddy and Centurion Lounges for the airport experience. Third one is Amex Fund Hotels and Resorts and the Hotel Collection. Number 4 is Travel Guides, and number 5 is Events. I feel like Travel Guides is a pretty easy lever. In a lot of ways, Amex is a data company. First off, they already have a lot of guides as a starting point, and it's pretty thorough. They could also probably crunch a lot of the requests that they get and recommendations they give over the last 10 years and 20 years into a database. If you take all this knowledge and recommendations and add an AI, it starts to become a pretty good companion. Events I know I've been harping on in the past few months, but it makes sense. I just checked their trademark filings before the video, and there's a lot going on. Note that just because they're filing something doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do it, unless you file 11 things in 4 months and 9 key ones in 3 months. Then there probably is something going on. In March 2024, we have Amex Experiences and Story of My Song. In April, we have Events by Amex, American Express Venue Collection, and Amex Venue Collection. In May, we have Amex Pre-Sale Tickets, Amex Reserve Tickets, Events with Amex, and Amex Preferred Tickets. Registration isn't a trademark, but where there's smoke, there's probably fire. There also are 2 trademarks that I think are interesting, but normal people might not like. One of them is Amex Passport, where they're going to have artwork authenticated by digital tokens. To me, that sounds like Popes, which are pretty much digital tickets, and proof that you went somewhere. Same reason people might keep their Taylor Swift or first class tickets. They also have Amex Afters, which is going to be a loyalty program. From the sounds of it, it's based off your bookings for entertainment for these events in order to win either backstage passes or visits or food and drinks. I could be completely wrong, but it just makes sense, and there's a paper trail. Overall, it should be an interesting year for Amex, and I'm curious if you think it'll be their next catalyst. Also, for all of this, if you're not a fan of these potential changes, then it probably makes sense to get the card now while it has a lower annual fee and pretty good intro bonus. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. For the gold and the platinum, I checked card match for the elevated offers, so 90k for the gold card and 150k for the platinum. If you made it to this point, leave a fire emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions: if the gold card annual fee is going up, if you can't change that, what credits would you want? You have to pick something, what would it be? Number 2, what perks and benefits do you want from Amex events? Number 3, how successful do you think the super app will be? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, consider subscribing, share this with a friend, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.